Ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready, let's talk about change. Not the kind that jingles in your pocket, but the kind that turns your whole life around, the kind that makes people stop and say, "What happened to you?" And you smile and say, "I happened to me." Now, here's the truth. People don't change their life by accident. They change it on purpose. Let me tell you what I've learned. Change doesn't start in the gym. It doesn't start in the bank. It doesn't even start in the mirror. Change starts in your philosophy. What you think, what you believe, what you decide is true about your life and what's possible for you. You see, if you change your philosophy, you change your attitude. If you change your attitude, you change your actions. And if you change your actions, you guessed it, you change your life. But here's what most people do. They wait for inspiration. They wait for the economy. They wait for motivation. Some are even waiting for a miracle. Well, let me tell you, waiting is not a strategy. Hoping is not a game plan. And someday is not on the calendar. Change starts with your philosophy. That's where it all begins, not with your circumstances, not with your goals, and certainly not with your luck. Your philosophy is the lens through which you see the world, and it dictates how you respond to everything around you. It's your personal belief system, your operating code, the quiet voice that tells you what's possible and what isn't. The moment you upgrade that philosophy, everything else begins to shift. Most people never examine their philosophy. They pick it up from parents, teachers, television, the neighborhood, and never stop to ask, is this actually serving me? They absorb beliefs like money is the root of all evil, or success is for other people, or people like me don't get ahead, and they carry those thoughts through life like invisible weights, wondering why nothing seems to change. They think their problem is out there in the job, the economy, their past. But in truth, it's not the world they need to fix. It's their philosophy. Imagine two people given the exact same opportunity, same tools, same resources, same 24 hours. One flourishes, the other flounders. Why? It's not skill. It's not even motivation. It's mindset. One person believes they can grow. The other believes they're stuck. One sees problems as puzzles to solve. The other sees them as reasons to quit. That's not circumstance. That's philosophy. It's the difference between I can figure this out, and I'm not cut out for this. It's subtle, but it's powerful. Your thoughts, repeated long enough, become beliefs, and your beliefs shape your actions. Your actions over time shape your reality. Let's say your philosophy says that success comes from luck. If that's your belief, you'll sit around waiting for something good to happen. And when it doesn't, you'll feel like a victim of bad fortune. But if your philosophy says success comes from preparation and hard work, then you'll spend your time preparing and working. That mindset doesn't guarantee immediate results, but it does guarantee momentum. And momentum, over time, creates massive change. Philosophy also determines how you deal with failure. If you believe failure is final, you'll stop after the first setback. But if you believe failure is feedback, you'll use it to get better. One mindset builds walls, the other builds bridges. So when people say, change your life, they often rush to change their actions. They start new routines, they set new goals. But if the philosophy underneath those actions hasn't changed, nothing lasts. That's why people go to the gym for 2 weeks and stop, or read one book and never apply it. Their philosophy still says, this probably won't work, or I don't really deserve this, or I'm just not that type of person. And the old beliefs eventually pull them right back. Changing your philosophy means challenging what you've accepted as truth. It means questioning the stories you tell yourself, especially the ones that limit you. It means asking, where did I learn that? Is it actually true? Does it help me or hold me back? It's not always comfortable work, but it's necessary. You can't plant a new garden in soil that's full of weeds. First, you clear it out. Then you plant new seeds. One of the most empowering shifts in philosophy is moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Scarcity says there's not enough money, time, love, opportunity. Abundance says there's more than enough if I'm willing to become the kind of person who attracts it. Scarcity makes you jealous of others' success. Abundance makes you curious. Scarcity makes you hoard. Abundance makes you create. And when your philosophy says that growth is always available, you start to see opportunity everywhere. Another shift is from external control to internal responsibility. Some people believe life happens to them. Others believe life happens for them, or even because of them. If your philosophy says, my life is a reflection of my choices, then you'll start taking ownership of those choices. You'll stop waiting for the world to change and start changing yourself. That one shift, from victim to creator, might be the most powerful shift of all. Your philosophy affects your relationships, too. If you believe people are mostly good, you'll approach them with trust and openness. If you believe people are mostly out to get you, you'll stay guarded. And guess what? People respond to your energy. Your philosophy becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The world reflects back to you what you believe about it. Even the way you see time is part of your philosophy. Some people treat time like it's endless. Others treat it like gold. Your philosophy determines whether you waste time or invest it, whether you procrastinate or prepare, whether you float through the day or attack it with purpose. Time doesn't change for anyone, but your philosophy about time can change everything about how you use it. So when people ask, how do I change my life? The real answer is, start with how you think, upgrade your philosophy, audit your beliefs, install a new way of seeing the world. Because once you see differently, you act differently. And once you act differently, life responds. You've got to get disgusted. That's where real change often begins, not with motivation, not with vision boards, and not with some fancy 5-year plan. Real change begins with a moment of powerful emotional clarity when you look at your life and say, I've had enough. Disgust is not the same as despair. It's not hopelessness. It's a spark. It's a turning point. It's that deep, visceral moment when something in your spirit rises up and says, no more. That's not a breakdown. That's a breakthrough trying to happen. Disgust can be one of the most productive emotions a human being can feel. Not anger, not sadness, not fear. Disgust, it's clean, it's sharp, it's decisive. It doesn't beg, it doesn't whimper, it doesn't wait. Disgust says, this is beneath me. I'm better than this. I'm done tolerating this situation, this habit, this level of living. It doesn't mean you think you're better than people. It means you know you're capable of more than what you've been settling for. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect waking up. People often ask, what does it take to really turn your life around? And they expect to hear a list of strategies, some perfect routine, a book, a mentor, a checklist. But before any of that works, something inside you has to flip. Some emotional gear has to shift. Something has to bother you enough that you can't sit still anymore. That's what disgust does. It wakes you up. It gets your attention. It puts you in motion. It doesn't even have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's something small, a number on the scale, a bounced check, another night scrolling for hours and realizing you've done nothing with the day. It hits you different. That's the moment where it becomes personal. Not because someone told you to change, not because you read it in a book, but because something inside said, this is not who I am. That's the power of disgust. It reconnects you with who you really are underneath the excuses. People change when they get emotionally involved with their own situation. Until then, they rationalize, they downplay, they say things like, it's not that bad, or at least I'm getting by. But there's a difference between surviving and thriving. Disgust helps you see that difference clearly. It makes you confront the gap between the life you have and the life you want. That confrontation is uncomfortable but necessary. Growth rarely comes from comfort. It comes from the tension between what is and what could be. Disgust is also different from guilt. Guilt says, I'm a bad person. Disgust says, I'm acting below my standards. There's a world of difference. One tears you down, the other lifts you up by saying, you're meant for more. It's not about shame, it's about standards. When you raise your standards, the things you once tolerated become unacceptable. And when something becomes unacceptable, you don't need someone to push you. You'll push yourself. Sometimes people wait for inspiration to come before they make a move. But disgust is often a stronger fuel. It's not pretty, but it works. It's raw, it's real. It's not about feeling good, it's about feeling done. Done with excuses, done with delay, done with self-sabotage. That moment of disgust becomes the line in the sand, the point of no return. And that's when things start to shift, not because the world changed, but because you did. Think of a person who's been stuck in a dead-end job for years. Every day they complain, but they stay. Why? Because the pain isn't quite high enough yet. But then one day something happens. Maybe they get passed over for a promotion. Maybe they see someone else succeed and feel something twist inside. Maybe they look in the mirror and finally see the cost of their complacency. And something inside snaps. That's the moment. Not the resume, not the job hunt, the decision, the disgust. That's the ignition. Or someone who's battled with health issues, tried diets, made resolutions, but nothing sticks. Why? Because deep down, the discomfort hasn't outweighed the convenience. But then one day, maybe it's a doctor's warning. Maybe it's a photo they can't stand to look at. Maybe it's watching their kids run around and realizing they don't have the energy to keep up. And they feel that surge of disgust. Not at themselves as a person, but at the way they've been living. That's where the fire starts. That's when the habits begin to change. Disgust sharpens your vision. It clears out the fog. You start seeing excuses for what they are. You start realizing that the life you've accepted is not the only life available to you. You begin to crave alignment between your values and your actions. And once you crave that alignment badly enough, you start making changes, not because someone told you to, but because you can't not change anymore. That's the beauty of disgust. It doesn't just push you away from pain, it pulls you towards something better. Once you realize how much more is possible, it's hard to keep settling. You start to ask better questions. You start to dream bigger, but more importantly, you start to act differently. You move with urgency. You develop discipline, not out of fear, but out of respect for yourself and your potential. Disgust is a gift in disguise. It's the emotional signal that says, you were not born for this mediocrity. It doesn't matter how long you've been stuck. It doesn't matter how many times you failed. That feeling, that fire, means there's still something in you that wants more, believes in more, and is ready to fight for it. You've got to make a decision. Real change starts when you make a decision, a real one. Not a wish, not a hope, not a someday. A decision that sticks, a decision that's backed by commitment, by action, by resolve. The kind of decision that says, this is it, I'm not turning back. Most people talk about change, but never truly decide to make it happen. They dabble, they try a little. They dip their toes in the water, but never dive in. And that's the difference between those who change and those who stay stuck. We've all been there, right? You set a goal. Tell yourself, this is it. This time will be different. But then, somewhere along the way, doubt creeps in. The excitement fades, the motivation dries up, and soon it's like nothing ever happened. You go back to your old habits, your old routines, and the goal becomes another item on your someday list. That's not a decision. That's a wish. And wishes don't change your life, decisions do. A real decision is different. It's not just a momentary feeling. It's a conscious choice that creates a shift in how you see the world. It's the moment when you say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to find a way to make it happen. It's a commitment to yourself that you won't quit. Not when things get tough. Not when it gets uncomfortable. Not when the inevitable setbacks come. Because they will. That's life. But a decision doesn't waver in the face of adversity. A decision stays steady, firm, and focused no matter what. Here's the secret: decisions are the foundation of your actions. What you decide in your mind will determine what you do in the world. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to have their lives together while others struggle year after year, the difference often comes down to one thing: the decisions they make. People who are successful don't make decisions on a whim. They make decisions with purpose. They make decisions with clarity. They make decisions with conviction. And because of that, their actions align with their decisions. A lot of people think that success comes from being lucky, from waiting for the right circumstances to fall into place. They believe that when everything lines up perfectly, then they'll make their move. But what successful people know is this: the circumstances rarely line up perfectly. And if you wait for everything to be just right, you'll never move. You'll be waiting forever. Real change happens when you make the decision to move, even when things aren't perfect, because it's in the act of moving that things begin to shift. Making a decision requires a shift in mindset. You have to stop thinking in terms of what you can't do and start focusing on what you will do. You've got to get rid of the excuses, the yeah, but thinking. Yeah, but I don't have the money. Yeah, but I don't have the time. Yeah, but I'm not ready. If you're waiting until you feel ready, you'll be waiting forever. There's no such thing as being 100% ready. That's the lie people tell themselves to avoid making a decision. The truth is, you don't need to be ready. You need to be willing to take that first step, willing to learn, willing to fail, willing to adjust along the way, willing to commit to the process. When you make a decision, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop questioning whether or not you can do it. You stop debating the pros and cons. A decision removes all that uncertainty. It's like drawing a line in the sand. Once you cross that line, there's no turning back. The decision has been made. Now it's just a matter of executing. And let's be clear, making a decision doesn't mean everything becomes easy. Far from it. A decision doesn't eliminate the challenges, the sacrifices, the hard work. It doesn't guarantee success. What it guarantees is that you will take consistent action toward what you want. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't a lack of obstacles. It's the willingness to keep moving despite the obstacles. It's the decision to keep going when things get hard. And make no mistake, things will get hard. The road to change is rarely smooth, but once you've made a decision, you're committed. And that commitment will carry you through the hard times. Making a decision also means taking responsibility for your own life. Too many people blame circumstances, other people, or external factors for their lack of progress. If only I had a better job, if only I had more support, if only I had more time. But when you make a real decision, you stop looking outside yourself for answers. You stop waiting for someone to save you. You stop blaming anyone else for where you are. You recognize that you hold the power to change your life. And that recognition is the first step toward real lasting change. It's empowering. Now, let's talk about the consequences of not making a decision. When you don't decide, you stay stuck in limbo. You remain in that maybe zone, never moving forward, never fully committing to anything. It's like being in the waiting room of your own life, always putting things off, always waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. And when you stay in that place, you get more and more frustrated. You feel like life is passing you by, and it is. Because while you're waiting for the right time, someone else is out there making decisions, taking action, and moving forward. The truth is, indecision is a decision. Every time you choose not to decide, you're making a decision to stay where you are. You're choosing inaction, and inaction breeds regret. You'll look back on your life and wonder what could have been if you just made the decision to act. If you just committed to change. That regret doesn't come from failing. It comes from not trying, from not making the decision to give it your best shot. So the question is, when will you make your decision? When will you stop putting off your dreams and start committing to them? When will you stop making excuses and start making progress? When will you make the decision to change your life? Because it only takes one moment to change everything, one moment of clarity, one moment of commitment, one moment of decision. And when you make that decision, everything else will follow. Design your life. Don't drift through it. Most people let life happen to them. They wake up, go through the motions, and react to whatever comes their way. They never truly take control of their journey. They let circumstances, other people's expectations, and external factors dictate how they live. They simply drift through life hoping that somehow things will improve, that things will magically fall into place. But life doesn't work that way. The key to a life of fulfillment and success is to actively design it on purpose, with intention, and with a clear vision. When you design your life, you stop being a passenger and become the driver. You no longer let things just happen to you. You take the reins, you make decisions with clarity, and you start creating the future you want to live. It's about taking control of your time, your energy, and your focus. Most people don't realize that their day-to-day choices, the things they decide to do, the habits they form, the people they surround themselves with, are the building blocks of the life they'll eventually live. The reality is, your life today is the sum total of all your previous choices. If you don't like where you are, you've got to design a new path. Designing your life doesn't mean that you know exactly how everything will unfold. It doesn't mean that you can predict every twist and turn along the way. Life will throw you curveballs, obstacles will arise, and plans will change. That's a given. But when you design your life, you're prepared for the unexpected. You understand that setbacks are part of the process. You don't let a few bumps in the road derail you. Instead, you take those bumps as part of the design, adjusting, tweaking, and evolving as you go. You also have to understand that designing your life requires making conscious choices. You can't just leave it up to chance. The first step is deciding what you want. What kind of life do you want to live? What do you want your days to look like? What are your values, your goals, and your dreams? You've got to get clear about what you want, because without a clear vision, you're going to end up aimlessly wandering, reacting to whatever comes your way, instead of proactively shaping your future. When you get clear on what you want, you're better able to set specific, actionable goals. Designing your life is about aligning your daily actions with your long-term vision. It's about creating a plan that brings you closer to the life you've envisioned. It's not enough to just want something. You have to break it down into achievable steps. Whether it's your career, health, relationships, or personal growth, you must take consistent action toward your goals. Small, deliberate actions compounded over time lead to extraordinary results. But those small actions only happen when you have a clear design for your life. One of the most important elements of designing your life is taking full responsibility for your time. Time is the most valuable resource you have, and how you choose to spend it ultimately determines the life you build. Too many people let their time slip away on distractions, unimportant activities, or things that don't move them closer to their goals. The truth is, you have the same 24 hours a day as everyone else, but it's what you do with those hours that makes all the difference. You've got to guard your time fiercely and allocate it to the things that matter most. That means making decisions based on your priorities, not on what other people think, not on what's urgent, but on what's truly important to you. Another key aspect of designing your life is creating the right environment. Your environment, whether it's physical, emotional, or social, plays a massive role in your success. You need to surround yourself with people who inspire you, people who challenge you to grow, and people who support your vision. Your environment should encourage your goals, not sabotage them. If you're surrounded by negativity, complacency, or people who don't understand your ambitions, it's going to be much harder to stay on track. Your environment should be a reflection of the life you're designing. If it's not, then it's time to make some changes. Part of designing your life is being willing to make tough decisions. Life is full of choices, and not all of them will be easy. You may have to let go of relationships, habits, or situations that no longer serve you. You may need to create boundaries in your life in order to protect your time and energy. Saying no to certain things is just as important as saying yes to the right things. Remember, every decision you make is a step toward the life you're designing, and every decision you avoid is a missed opportunity to shape your future. It's not always comfortable, but it's necessary. If you want a better life, you've got to be willing to make the tough calls. Designing your life also requires adaptability. You can't plan for every eventuality, but you can plan to be flexible. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes things won't go as planned. But instead of seeing this as a setback, see it as an opportunity to grow, adapt, and adjust your course. People who design their lives don't get discouraged when things don't go their way. They take the lesson, adjust their plans, and keep moving forward. They understand that obstacles aren't permanent. They're just temporary roadblocks on the way to something greater. One of the biggest challenges people face when trying to design their life is fear. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of making mistakes. But here's the thing: fear is part of the process. You can't avoid it. You can't eliminate it, but you can choose to act in spite of it. When you design your life, you don't let fear paralyze you. Instead, you use it as fuel to push forward. You understand that fear is a signal that you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, and that's exactly where the magic happens. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens when you take risks, make decisions, and move forward despite uncertainty. When you design your life, you also commit to constant growth. It's not a one-time event, it's an ongoing process. You're always learning, evolving, and becoming better. Designing your life means you never stop improving. Every day is an opportunity to take a step forward, to refine your goals, to become a better version of yourself. It's about being intentional with your time and energy, constantly aligning yourself with the person you want to become and the life you want to create. In the end, designing your life is about taking ownership of your future. It's about creating a life that aligns with your values, your passions, and your dreams. It's about making decisions that reflect who you are and who you want to become. It's about shaping your days with intention and purpose. If you want to live a life you love, you've got to design it. You've got to stop waiting for things to happen, and start making things happen. The life you want is waiting for you, but it won't come by accident. It comes by design.